Hello, hello. Today we have Lottie Moore joining us on the spiritual journey. Lottie is a shamanic practitioner, a firewalk instructor, and also a motivational speaker. So, hello, Lottie. How are you?
Hi, Lindsay. Yeah, I'm really good, really good. Thanks for inviting me here.
You're welcome. Thank you. So, Lottie and I met about a year ago now. And Lottie also came to Richard McCann's event this year where she built a fire where we had to walk across it. And there was some awesome songs beforehand, which really got us motivated and ready to cross this fire. So I just want to know, Lottie, like, how on earth do you get into being a firewalk instructor? Because it's not exactly something that you would say at school, this is what I really want to be.
Absolutely. It's definitely not one for the career teacher, right? So my own personal journey was that I used to run a coaching organisation. At that point, I was just coaching women. And as part of that, I started running mountain treks. And somebody said to me, if you like taking people out of the comfort zone, you should try firewalking. And that's how I got to where I am now, I guess. But I now train instructors as well. I find people come from all kind of walks of life, all kind of different experiences. So a lot of people will turn up and they've never walked fire before. And are there really to do it as part of their career advancement. You know, maybe they're working already with some kind of spiritual discipline, or maybe they're coaching or speaking already. And other people come really just for the personal experience of that deep connection with Mother Earth and the elements, and really kind of learning more about themselves in that way.
Yeah, because I think when knowing that you were going to be there and doing the firewalk, for me, I was like, oh my days, that is so far out of my comfort zone, walking on actual hot coals. So, like, have you always sort of stepped outside of your comfort zone? Do you have a comfort zone?
I don't think I do have one anymore so much. It's interesting for me. So I came out of a very abusive relationship with my daughter when she was 1, with a guy that was diagnosed as narcissistic and other things, and he kind of stalked me for many years, and I became a very broken woman, actually. And so during that time, I was a very different person from who you know now. Just to look anybody in the eye, let alone have a conversation, I think was really challenging for me. And I went to live in Africa. I ran away, basically. But through doing that, I feel that I really reconnected with who I am. And now I'll give almost anything a go. Almost.
Yeah.
I wouldn't bungee jump.
Would you know? But I mean, so like other things that you do, so as well as getting people to walk across hot coals, you also get them to have arrows at their throat, don't you?
Yeah.
And walk on broken glass as well. So
yeah,
how do people find that?
So they're all very different experiences. So for instance, glass walking, believe it or not, is probably the most mindful experience that you can have. So there's that initial really stepping through the fear, because you hear the noise of the breaking glass. And most people have what we call an anchor, a memory of the first time of hearing broken glass, somebody like their mum standing in the kitchen doorway going, don't come in.
Yeah.
And so it triggers a really deep fear for them. But once they've taken that first step or two, and realise, okay, this feels okay, it becomes very mindful, because all of their attention has to go to what their feet is telling them. So I know some people that do glass walking as a form of meditation, as well as that kind of breakthrough. So you have that. And then the arrow breaking with the throat, again, is very different. It takes like a nanosecond to do. This is a very private area, very sensitive, very personal area that we don't like people in that space or anything in that space. So for some people, just standing up and putting the arrow there without even thinking about breaking it, again, is a real kind of revelation for them. And to actually do it, you just feel the energy go up. It's like a second, and they're completely different.
Yeah.
Complete change of state.
So have you had anyone who is just like point blank just refused and went, I'm not doing that, I don't want to do that at all?
Yeah, absolutely. It's you know, occasionally you get people that don't want to try it. So with the arrow, sometimes we just get people to break them over their legs and stuff like that. And you know, for all of these things, part of the real deep sense of the process is the making of the choice. And that tapping into your intuition, should I do this today or not?
Yeah.
I've done a lot of work with the military, and for them the biggest thing is making the choice. They're so used to being given orders that me standing at the front of the room and saying you could do this if you want to completely throws them. Completely throws them. And I think for firewalking, that's particularly the case. And firewalking, there is a risk. Some people will get blisters on their feet. And so to be given that choice, especially in the society we live in nowadays, very litigious, very suing kind of concept of the choices we make, that can be the real challenge for people.
Yeah. So where does the idea of firewalking come from then? It's not a Western tradition, is it?
Well, actually, you can find firewalking in all of the ancient traditions.
Okay. Yeah.
You look around the globe, literally with the kind of Maori, the Aboriginal, across kind of Malaysia, the Catholics in Europe, the Native Americans, you know, everywhere you go around the world, there is evidence of a history of firewalking within the ancient peoples.
I didn't realize that.
It doesn't come from anywhere specific, and hopefully that makes people realize there's got to be something to it, right? Not everybody would like, it wouldn't have happened that way. And so for me, you know, I work in a very Celtic way. I'm really connected to my ancestral roots in that way, so I try and bring in that real connection with the earth, you know, get people taking their shoes and socks off and putting their feet on the earth long before they get anywhere near the fire. Whereas other people will work in very different traditions.
So have you seen a rise in popularity in firewalking? Because I think it was Tony Robbins had a firewalker at his event, and then I saw another lady was doing an event and she was like, oh, we've got firewalking. So do you think there's been a surge in popularity in firewalking recently?
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? So Tony Robbins does them at all of his UPW events, and he was actually trained by the same woman that trained me.
Oh, really?
So I can say I've done the advanced training. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't do that. And definitely, I think here in the UK, the charity firewalks have really taken off and things like that. So it's definitely become a better known thing. It's really interesting to me to see the way it has risen up, you know, because the way that Tony Robbins does it, for instance, very similar to what happened at Richard McCann's, you know, where there's a fire in a car park, so it's quite a sterile environment, and so it creates a very different type of thing to that which I do at my firewalks, and again a very different type of thing for the charity firewalks that you might do. But I work all around the world, literally. So yeah, I work a lot with some friends in Latvia, and they're really bringing that up as their traditional, kind of the traditional European stance around it. So yeah, it's really interesting to see. But the what's known as the modern firewalking movement started very early 80s. And it was a woman called Peggy Dillon, so that's my teacher, the woman that trained Tony Robbins, and her husband at that time, Tolly Buchan, decided they were going to try it. And it was all through trial and error throughout the 80s and kind of early 90s, really, of how would this stuff work? What could they do? And, you know, and yeah, so it's interesting to see how it has risen and is really spreading out around the world now.
Yeah. So, because you use a lot of shamanic tools as well, don't you? So just before we were talking about sweat lodges as well.
Yeah.
So do you feel there's like, and again, it's the rise in the firewalking, but do you feel like there's a real place and a need for shamanic sort of rituals and shamanic tools like now?
Yes, I Oh, blimey. We live in such a fractured world. I mean, you do not have to go 2 inches away from your phone screen to realise that we live in a really fractured world. And as well as the breakdown in the political systems and everything else, the rise in the anxiety, the depression, the suicide, the addiction, you know, all of this, I believe, comes a lot from that real disconnection of you know, with Mother Earth, with our own ability to make choices and tap into our own healing, and with the kind of signs and the little messages that are coming through to us all the time. We're so disconnected from that. So yeah, to me, that's what shamanism is all about. I don't call myself a shaman, I call myself a shamanic practitioner. But to me, it's all about that reconnection. It's all, I think I was telling you just before we kind of came on to the recording about the new course that I'm running next year, everything, and it's called the Ahusiano process, and Ahusiano is Swahili for connection.
Oh, lovely.
So it's all, to me, it's all about that disconnect. And I think that shamanic rituals, ceremonies, practices have that ability to bring us back around to that point of reconnection.
So, like I said, we're talking a bit about sweat lodges before. Can you just explain, like, what a sweat lodge is and why you would want to go into a sweat lodge as well?
Yeah.
What the benefits could be.
So let me work backwards. So sweat lodge is a rebirthing, basically. It's the womb of Mother Earth in that kind of form, and it's a great space for very deep release, really deep healing, and really deep intention setting. Again, it's found in several of the ancient traditions and ancient people. So it's, as well as sweat lodge, you might have heard it called Inapi, steam healing, all this kind of idea. So that's what it's about. That's why people would want to do it, maybe. I work in the way of the Pueblo people of New Mexico, and I've been trained in that lineage. The sweat lodge, from a physical concept, is a bit like an igloo shape, I guess. It's built out of branches and then covered in blankets until it's pitch black inside, and then we have the fire outside where stones are heated, and when the stones are hot in the fire, people go into the lodge and the stones are brought in at certain points, and it's up to the sweat lodge keeper, so that would be myself in my instance, to use water on those stones to get it hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter, so like a steam room, but even hotter still, probably. And people would say that you sweat it out, and that's not just a physical process, it's a very deep kind of emotional process as well, of like sweating out what no longer serves you.
Yeah, because I found, so like I said to you, there was an opportunity which came up which I couldn't say no to, so I ended up in this sweat lodge with sort of, I think there was 10 of us in there. And that first time when the water's poured onto the stones, the heat just hits you in the face. And I was like, because it was like a herbal concoction made with the water as well. And I was struggling to sort of breathe, and a few of us were sort of coughing initially because when the herbs sort of hit your throat as well. And you lose track of time as well, so I have no idea how long we were in there for. But the sweat lodge keeper, he was making sort of guttural noises with his throat, and doing some chanting, and everyone, because you couldn't say anything, you had to just sit and meditate. So
interesting. So different traditions work differently. I would say it's always important to make sure that whoever you're working with, can track their lineage and say what tradition they are working in. But for the ones I do, we actually do 4 rounds. So we go around and everybody speaks or sings or says, I don't want to say anything at this time. And we have a certain song that we sing in the lodge, but we all sing it together. and that kind of idea. So it's a guided process. And for me, I think a part of that is that, you know, the first time we go around and everybody speaks, and each time I kind of give them the theme or what they're going to be talking about, kind of idea. The first time people are really in their head, right? And so they've thought, since I've told them you're going to have to talk on the first round about such a, they thought about what they're going to say, and it's all crafted, and this. By the time we come to the fourth round, people are sitting there. They haven't really got clothes on. They're on the bare ground. There's trees from the sweat lodge sticking in their back. It's very low and cramped. The steam is getting hotter and hotter and hotter. They can no longer think with their head about what they're going to say. They can, you know, their head is going, get me out of here. And so what comes out of their mouth is very much from a much deeper place.
Yeah, it was, I just found it fascinating, and like I just kept chuckling to myself, because I said, you know, there was a group of us in there that just ended up being in there. But yeah, I did find it quite sort of, I would say sort of refreshing really, because like you said, you're physically sweating and you're sat there, like you said, you know, on plants and nettles and things. And it isn't the most comfortable, and getting in and out of the sweat lodge as well isn't the most graceful of things, is it? Because you're on you're on like your hands and your knees trying to crawl out with like your bum. You're going to see, you're seeing a people like, excuse my bum, do you know what I mean? And trying to get out and everything. But it's definitely an experience, I think, that a lot of people would benefit from if, you know, if the opportunity arose for them.
Yeah, and the US military actually use them now for PTSD healing.
Does it?
Yeah. So it's amazing to see these traditional healings really being brought back into the modern. We're running a sweat lodge keeper training in Ireland next year actually as well. I think there's a real need for that type of thing, and it's not that easily accessible at the moment.
Exactly,
it's really important that the right people are doing it, but it would be lovely to see it more accessible, and to see more people really benefiting from that really deep work. I would say that everything I do, it's probably one of the deepest.
It's like cleansing. It's just cleansing, isn't it?
Cleansing, yeah.
And you're not really having to think about it or talk about anything either. It's just allowing that stuff to come up, isn't it, and come out in you.
Yeah. And sometimes that's the challenge, isn't it, right? When it comes up, we make ourselves busy. We go, oh, I just have a look on Facebook, or in real life. And suddenly to be in that place where it is like a little womb, isn't it? You are literally just in there and it's all happening. There's no escape from it.
No, exactly. But so do you feel like, how were you drawn to the shamanic way of doing things then?
I think it's been a slow journey actually over the last few years. So for me, when I trained as a Firewalk instructor, if I'm honest, I didn't find my training hugely impactful. It's very much more about the empowerment side of it, the kind of Tony Robbins type of firewalking. Nothing wrong with that. I'm not kind of putting that down, but it's not where my heart is. You know, I wanted something more spiritual. And so I think slowly over the years I found that. So for instance, when I trained as a sweat lodge keeper, I was invited to go and train. I think I was really lucky that I found Peggy, the woman I was talking about earlier, and was able to kind of really come under her wing. She's become a friend now. I've been to stay with her out in America and stuff, as well as a great teacher to have. And you know, sometimes with these things, the more open you are to it and everything, suddenly it all just starts happening. I think for me, it's only in the last year or two really that I feel I've been really cracked open. Really like cracked open. And you know, I've had resistance to that in sometimes, and other times it's been a really beautiful process.
I think sometimes people think, or they have this perception, that if we are working as healers or therapists or shamanic practitioners or whatever, that because we already have these tools, that we're fine. We don't go through any of this stuff. But it's like, oh my days, we go through so much stuff ourselves, don't we? And we process, and we have to keep healing at a deep level. And
Do you want to hear a really funny story? I was retelling this just yesterday, actually. I was on a shamanic course at like at New Year or like end of last year. I can't remember exactly which one it was, actually. And as part of that, we all had to do a power retrieval for each other. I started crying, and the guy that was running the course, like we Stephen, he's like, Lottie, don't cry. What are you crying for? You can do this. You can do this really easily. It's fine. You can do this as well. That's not why I'm crying. Like, oh no, Lottie, you can absolutely do this. It's not like that's not why I'm crying. And so it's like, why are you crying, Lottie? And like, I want the power. I know that the power's just going to take me into a whole new thing. I don't want the power.
I know. I do that sometimes with the universe, like especially if there's either a lesson that they're sending me or if they're trying to tell me something. Like last night I was like, I don't want to face this, you know, I'm not going there, I don't want to do this work, and I was just being an ostrich. I put Netflix on, put some cheesy program on, so I didn't have to sit with it. And then a friend accidentally called me, and he wasn't meant to ring me, but by him ringing me, I started going through the stuff, and I was just like, oh. So the universe upstairs, even though like we might not feel ready to go through it ourselves as healers and therapists, they have a way, don't they, of making us go through it.
Oh yeah, it's always I had something very similar yesterday, that my car wouldn't start.
Oh no.
And in the hour it took for me to get my car going again, it all happened. You know, I call it medicine. You know, it's our medicine, right? And medicine quite often doesn't taste very nice.
No, exactly. So if anyone wants to come and work with you, Lottie, how do they find you? Or do you work primarily one-to-one, or is it groups? Or can you just explain a bit more about how
that's a great question. So I do different stuff in different ways. So I run, I train Firewalk instructors, train sweat lodge keepers, and run the Husiano process, which is the kind of personal development program, and as physical courses that people can book to come on or have a chat and see if it's right for them. So do that. And then I do some one-to-one work as well. So things like power retrieval, healing, and coaching through that. So I think I bring kind of a nice blend of modalities, you know, a bit of mindfulness, bit of CBT, bit of the shamanic work, to kind of blend it all together. So and the one-to-one stuff I can do remotely as well. If I'm doing healing work, I have a lovely little shepherd's hut that I go and put my blankets down in my shepherd's hut and can do it there. So yeah, they're the main things I do. And I guess the website is probably the best one, is lottiemore.co.uk. Or I'm regularly on Facebook, so they can look up Lottie Firewalk Master Moore or Lottie Moore and just come and say hi. I love connecting with people. You know, I think that so much comes from the relationships we have, and sometimes it can take donkey's years for you to realise, well, oh, that's why I met that person. We know each other on Facebook. You know, this kind of idea. So I love connecting with people. So if people just want to reach out and like send a friend's request, if they're doing that, they should send me a message to say, I saw you with Lindsay, because I get a bit aggy about people doing that and then trying to sell me stuff.
No, I'm exactly the same. No, I'm exactly the same. And especially when people friend request you and it's like they don't even know anyone that you know, they're just, you know, when the fake profiles, and it's just like, oh, go away.
And then the next thing, they're waving at you. Who designed that Facebook wave? It's like, come on.
No, I don't wave at anyone back, because I'm just like, a simple hello would suffice.
But even hello is like, come on, what is it you want?
Yeah.
That's one of my things for this year, actually. You know, I write myself like 5 points of power every year of the things I should be doing. So one of my things is ask for what you want.
That's a good one. I like that.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Cool. Well, thank you very much, Lottie, for talking all things shamanic with us and sweat lodges. And I'll pop all of your links underneath the video as well, so people can come and find your website. And
thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Jake.
You're really welcome. Bye.